Gotta start this one off right. Alright, so this is gonna be like a hodgepodge of different things. If you, today is October 7th, 2019. If you haven't seen the Quite Frankly show today, I highly recommend watching it. It's gonna become a habit for you once you do. It'll be very habit forming. What he discussed is quite concerning to me. I'm a small business owner. I created a product, 37 of them, and I own a small business, and it's pretty apparent that they're really ramping up their war on the bourgeois, and their war on the middle class, and the war on small business owners from New York to California and beyond. It's the acts of a very entitled people who live in a bubble who don't get affected by their decisions type of reaction. It's very communist, it's very Jesuit. It's been the plan the whole time, since the 1700s and before that, so they're just getting back around to it, and right now they feel, for whatever reason, when they're feeling so threatened by this president, they all of a sudden have to put all their shit on the table, and they have decided to go after us. So this book that I have up here, that I'm showing you right now, is called Caesar's Messiah. And I have talked about in the past my problems with the church and the Jesuits and Catholicism in general, Christianity as well, and the concept that the Jew gods are our gods when the Jews don't think so. They say that those are their gods, and those are their gods that are going to reap havoc on us. Anyone who's not a Jew, basically. Wipe us off the planet and give it back to the chosen people. So those 10 commandments and things like that, that was for the tribes. That was just for them. That was for them to get along with one another. It had nothing. It did not extend out to the next non-Jew tribe. That they didn't have the same rules for them. You could rape, kill, whatever, steal, whatever you want to do. They did not follow the 10 commandments with mankind. They followed them between Jews. Fact. Okay, so then Caesar's Messiah by Joseph Atwill. He'll get into where Vespasio, Flavian, and his son Titus, and Domitian, I guess his name is, and Josephus got together. Josephus, of course, being the big pussy that was about to be slain, basically, by Vespasio. Even though he had no real background, but somehow Josephus conned his way into becoming a general or something similar to that, something equivalent to that. One of the German troops, Jewish troops, and he got overtaken by the Romans, and then he's like, "I am a prophet, and I have foreseen this from happening. You are going to be the great ruler of this land." Talking to Vespasio like that. And of course he was, because he was trying to save his own ass. And Vespasio actually adopted him. He became Josephus Flavian. And Josephus is credited with the War of the Jews, but I would say that he's also credited with the New Testament. And I have a lot of reasons for believing that. The Flavian dynasty lasted from 69 to 96 CE, the period when most scholars believe the Gospels were written. It consisted of 3 Caesars, Vespasian and his 2 sons, Titus and Domitian. Hey, I did it right. Flavius Josephus, the adopted member of the family who wrote War of the Jews, was their official historian. And like I said, he was a traitor. To the Jews, anyway. Once Jesus was universally established as a world historical individual, any other possibility became evidently invisible. The more we believe in Jesus as a world historical figure, the less we are able to understand him in any other way. And this book will probably piss off a lot of people, but he shows how the War of the Jews is like, you read it as a companion book with the New Testament, and then you start to get the joke. There's a joke in there, and the joke is very dark. It's very sadistic, but he makes light of conquest where people were. They come and you will become fishers of men, Well, he's what that really means is they were stabbing people and plucking them out of the water and slicing their throats. That was what the Romans were doing to these Jews who were just trying to get to safety. They were just cutting them all down and spearing them and things like that. And that was part of the joke. And then the other part where they starved the Jews by putting up a wall around, and then some woman named Mary sacrificed her own kid and ate him. And that was the Jesus, it converted into Jesus saying, "This and I flesh of this," and then basically sounded like cannibalism again. Neither one of those stories, or both, are maybe true as far as what Josephus writes about, or because I mean in the parable, like nobody else was there to know what she was saying when there was nobody in the same room with her. But he has a whole dialogue with her, like talking about her foul offspring and stuff like that. It doesn't sound right. But okay, so I bring that up to bring this up. So, and the preface of, did Jesus really exist, and why is that important? Am I going to hell for asking the question? I don't think so. So you can stop worrying about me. Worry about yourself. And Nimrod. Here's one of the reasons why. Here's one of my proofs as to why I believe that the Old Testament itself is flawed. And I'm going to read this. This is an excerpt. And this actually comes from I call this one Yahweh the Dickhead and the Hero Nimrod. This, and let me just pop this over here so I can see myself again. Okay. This isn't from up here. This is, okay. This seems to be what happened during the first rebellion against Yahweh by man, Babylon. That was the first rebellion of man against God, or just from Yahweh, the demiurge. Because the Creator God seems like he's pretty chill with us. You see, it's only this one guy named Yahweh, and he seems to always have an issue with people that he created, supposedly, allegedly. He has to keep on controlling them and telling them what to do. It seems kind of odd. It just, on the surface, seems like it's very, very suspect. Babylon. Okay, so Fallen Ones, although Nimrod... I guess Fallen Ones was the title. It just kind of put it all in one line. Although Nimrod only receives passing mention as becoming a mighty one, and a mighty hunter before the Lord. And Lord is a very subjective word, and it doesn't always mean what you think it means. It could be a lord of the land, like a land lord. It's a thrown around word, and it's actually mistranslated like 1,000%. So, in the Lord in the Bible. In the Bible, in lore and literature, he is credited for having led the first rebellion. It was Nimrod. Funny how the only guy with the name Nimrod in its whole entire book seems to be the only one who isn't a fucking Nimrod. It was Nimrod who excited them to such an effort and contempt of God. He was the grandson of Ham. Didn't say if he was grandson of lady, so. And son of Noah, a bold man and of great strength of hand. He persuaded them not to ascribe to God. To ascribe it to God. Oh, so he said if you have a trait, a characteristic, or a quality that makes you special and stand out, don't just keep on giving it. It's like if you just created a masterpiece, don't let some other asshole sign it as if it was their work. Oh, well, yeah, sounds pretty fucking cool to me. Sounds pretty obvious. So he says, don't ascribe it to God. Yeah, take some credit for your own fucking shit, dude. As if it was through his means they were, as if it was through God's means that they were happy, but to believe that it was their own courage which procured that happiness, there's no sin there. That is healthy thinking. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny. Of course, right? You gotta use that word tyranny because it's very political bullshit, right? Seeing they're calling our president tyrannical too. It seems like that's a lot of fabrication to me. Seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God, but to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. Oh, so now they're saying that he's using social programs like they do? Oh, jeez. Oh, that's a... So it's okay if they do that, to endear the people because they become dependent upon the government. It's not okay if Nimrod supposedly was a charitable man. Sounds good so far. Okay. Because he wanted them to understand that they could feel good about themselves, so he lavished them with things to make them feel good about themselves, so that they wouldn't constantly be on their fucking bended knee. I'm going to do a lot of this interjecting because this stuff pisses me off. Right. He also gradually, changed the blah blah blah. Let's see. Courage between good happiness. Yeah. Change government, tyranny, another way. Right. Seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God. Oh, so tyranny was the only way to turn men from the fear of God. But to bring them into a constant dependence on his power. I think I read that already. He also said he would be revenged on God if he should have the mind to drown the world again. Oh, okay, so now Nimrod is taking precautions because at one point the entire world was drowned by a very vengeful little hissy fit child in a sandbox named Yahweh who wanted all the toys and he didn't want anybody else to play with them. So he killed them all. So this guy, being a good leader and a person who wants to protect mankind, says, you know, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to take precautions to, if that happens again, there's going to be some place for us to breathe. So, for that he would build a tower too high for the waters to be able to reach, and that he would avenge himself on God for destroying their forefathers. Now the multitude were very ready to follow the determination of Nimrod, and to esteem it a piece of cowardice to submit to God. And they built a tower, neither sparing any pains nor being in any degree negligent about the work. They were good craftsmen because they were skilled people. And by design, and by reason of the multitude of hands employed in it, it grew very high, sooner than anyone could expect. But the thickness of it was so great, and it was so strongly built that thereby its great height seemed upon the view to be less than it really was. So it was skinny. When you see things that are skinny, they look like they're stretched. You know, when you see a really tall, skinny person, they just look taller because they're thin. It's the same thing. They're saying like this thing had a lot of girth, ladies, that it didn't look as tall because it was so wide. It was kind of sounds like a pyramid, but it's whatever. Anyway, so great that social web. Okay. It was built of burnt brick, cemented together with mortar made of bitumen, that it might not be liable to admit water. When God saw that they acted so madly, they don't want to die. They don't know if you're gonna throw a fucking fit again. You're an unstable fucking demiurge. You probably are a physical creature with a fucking problem. Probably came from the other side of the ice wall. Just saying. He did not resolve to destroy them utterly. Oh, what a nice guy. He wanted to play with his food. Since they were not grown wiser by the destruction of the former sinners. Did he really take that into consideration? He's like, you know what, I murdered you all before. I don't really think you learned anything. Maybe because I killed all of you. Except for those guys in a boat. And those animals. But he caused a tumult among them by producing in them, it says diverse with like divers, but it's supposed to be diverse languages, and causing that through the multitude of those languages they should not be able to understand one another. So immigration, he used immigration to make it confusing for anybody to communicate with each other. Are they not doing that right now? So the people who would advocate for this right now, who say God this and God that, these liberal Christians with these in the National Council of Churches that is run by the fucking Rothschilds and the colony of Rome, you know, they're gonna tell you that when they tell us that we have to let them in, and the Pope and his army called the UN tell us that we have no choice but, he said, let them in or there'll be repercussions. This is a Jesuit priest talking, right? No. No, we're not going to do that. But this is basically what this sounds like. The confusion of the languages. He sent them a different type of flood. It was a flood of people from different walks of life that didn't know how to understand each other. The place wherein they built the tower is now called Babylon. Josephus. Oh, look at who we're talking about, Josephus. As a result of this, Babylon became a euphemism for rebellion against the Lord, especially when it was an organized corporate effort. When the dragon fell from heaven, he took 1/3. And here's the. Just roll your eyes with me if you like. You don't have to. When the dragon fell from heaven, he took 1/3 of the angelic host with him in disloyalty. The Bible implies that's not in good English. The Bible implies the price of this disloyalty was the inability to freely walk among the creation as loyal angels do. These are two ways for disloyal spiritual entities to interact with earthly existence: to possess living host as a result of its acquaintance, and then I cut it off there because I didn't care anymore. But that goes into like archons and, you know, why Aleister Crowley was so interested in forcing portals in children by raping them. Not that he didn't get his kicks out of the actual raping part, but the ritual sex magic. There's no denying it. Just because they don't talk about it doesn't mean that he wasn't ripping the wombs of paganistic women who had bastard children and throwing them into flames to sacrifice to get the energy that he needed to do his rituals. That's what the other part of the ritual sex magic rituals that they don't talk about. It's not the sex part; it's the killing the baby part. So don't think it's a fucking fun party. You know, in my other video, I talk a lot more about Aleister Crowley, but he is still. That's our go-to guy. It always has been. What you're looking at it should be called Crowlitics. It's not politics. What you're looking at when you look at the CIA formation, even though it was built off the foundation of the structure, the outline of the Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits, because that's a spy agency for the Vatican, and it's a military one. They're assassins basically. What they do from 1947 on up, the cybernetics started with the Rockefeller Society and Macy's, and then it merged into the MK Ultra programs. Where do they get that information from? It wasn't just paperclip Nazis. Where did they get that information? Who retaught them a lost knowledge? Aleister Crowley. Yeah, it was him. So what you're looking at through all that, and you know the MK Ultra shit, you can just go and take a look, and you'll find out that there's no end to that program. They're always testing drugs on unsuspecting people. They're always doing stuff like that. The torture, the sexual abuse, all to splinter your mind so that entities can get in. So what they're doing, you splinter your personality, compartmentalize your personality. They can make you do things by manipulation, and then they can also try to conjure these other entities into you. So the most innocent become the most uninnocent in that process, and the destruction of something that God made that was good is part of their kicks. I threw it for a dramatic effect. You know how was that guy basically like this with the papers? Yeah. So, getting back to non-player characters and archons and what that left off when it was talking about how there were certain rules that these... I get sick of hearing them being referred to as, you know, angels and blah blah blah. Let's just call them something, you know, an interdimensional thing, perhaps. Crowley was very into opening portals. He was not just opening portals of people themselves in their own minds to allow, you know, for the ritual seances to get them possessed, but he was also supposedly conducting these rituals, probably also with sex, because it's sex magic. It's all about the energy of the sex, right? Horrible things being done to children in the process. He was opening portals all over the world, a lot of them in the United States, and for the reason being, mainly P. Hall, I think, even goes into this, is there is an ancient history to the United States that is never validated, and a lot of the old texts talk about certain rivers and certain things like that that were very strong, powerful places to do magic in, and he probably did open portals. He wasn't the type of guy who cared if he closed them or not. If you think about the story of Solomon, Solomon allegedly used 72 demons to create his palace and everything like that. And the seal of Solomon, which I think you all know what that looks like, is supposed to keep them it's like a lid. You know, that's holding them in there. It's magic spell cast on this symbol, and that symbol is supposed to keep back 72 demons, whom he was just so clever he was able to manipulate without any repercussions. I'm sure they're all stuck in there still, and that none of this weird shit that you see, like the 4-on-1 disappearances, like that has anything to do with any portals, or the staircases to nowhere that people report in the woods. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. So Nephilim. Nephilim is another word, and this is another term, and I think that also, you can just look at the non-player character again, because if you have to possess something, you're like an avatar, right? So a living avatar is just a little bit slightly different than a golem, which is something that they would like made you out of clay, and then put the paper in your mouth, and then all of a sudden, ta-da-da! What would you like me to do, Master? Oh yeah, it's already here. I'll go do that. That's programming, or the Matrix. You know, a program, a background program that's just running. And I say, there's a lot of people that, like back in the earlier part of the video, there's a lot of stupid people out there, and you start to wonder. I mean, I know a lot of it's thought manipulation, because you're just getting bombarded. The TV points their cameras at what they want you to see, and they tell you their spin-on thing. And if you're just looking at television that you pay for, cable, you're never going to know anything about anything. If you don't read, and I know it's a dead art. I know I'm probably talking to myself. I'm not criticizing anybody. We're putting this situation for a specific reason. Like, this is very well manufactured. The reason why we are able to read and don't have the time to is because we both have to work. Like, you and your spouse have to work if you have a kid. Even if you don't, you probably still do. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make us so preoccupied with our occupation that's occupying us that we don't have time to actually think and discern what we're being told. Self-determination and scrutinizing everything is the two key factors of being what a true Christian is. I don't like the word Christian because Christos in Greek, I keep saying German, in Greek means like it's like the equivalent of what Messiah means, which is a savior or messianic being coming from blah 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 to save, do something else, right? I don't know if I buy that. I think that's a way of making people. It's a way of disarming people. Because if you're waiting for this one guy, and if it's blasphemous not to take matters into your own hands, that does nothing but serve your enemy, because you're not going to stand up for the oppression that you're receiving, right? Like, you're not going to lift a finger to help yourself, so that helps them because there won't be an uprising, there won't be a rebellion. So that's why I think Christianity was created by Josephus, because they were having a lot of problems with the Jews because they were waiting for this warmongering Jew Messiah, which is, if you look at the war scrolls that came out, you know, much later, I think the 1940s or something, they were found, the Nag Hammadi and all that stuff. They and of course the kid having all these scrolls decided to burn some to keep warm that night, so we don't have all of them. Are you really? Is that the story that we're going with? Yeah, I think even a peasant would have better sense than that. I think they just didn't want certain ones to go because they would be too detrimental. That sounds like a church cover-up to me. And I'm sure they're at the Vatican vault, if any place. Not really burned anywhere. I think that kid would have been burned if he actually did that. And I don't think that would have been a good thing. I don't think that's... I'm not advocating for that. But it gives you a nice motivation. Motive, right? Like, what's the motive of creating a religion? And that, as plain as day, was going on in Rome for many years before Josephus came around. They made a art out of creating religions, being the what do you call it? The head honcho of, I don't know what you call that. What do you call it? Arbiter of the religion? I don't know what you call it, but even the Flavian dynasty, like Vespasio was already overseeing at least I think 3 different religions. One of them was Vespasian worship, or Flavian family bloodline worship. And the problem they had with the Jews is that part of the Roman law, because they had like, I think it was like 30 different religions going on. They liked that. They liked that because it kept people diverse, right? So kind of like what they're doing with us, where they want us to always be fighting. They kept their people in the Roman Empire diverse by allowing all these religions to flourish, so that nobody would feel like they were getting along with each other, because everybody was different, right? They were just too different at their core, and they encouraged that. In Rome, you could have any religion that you wanted, but you also had to worship the Caesar as a god, and that's where the Jews absolutely would not budge on that whatsoever. They would not have anything to do with it, and good for them. Good for them. You know, not every Jew is a fucking Rothschild. Don't be a dick. Don't be stupid. If you're gonna, that's like every Italian is a fucking mobster, right? Shut the fuck up. I'm Italian. Anyway, so they had a vested interest in trying to squelch the the uprisings that were occurring a lot with the Jews, because they would refuse to even be at all civil, and the whole time their motivation to keep them going was that their Messiah was coming, and he was going to lead them to victory in battle, and they had some really vindictive thoughts in their head. And maybe the Romans were absolutely shit, but I mean, they were genocidal in thought. The Jews were. They wanted everybody done. They wanted to wipe the whole fucking surface of the earth clean, and they wanted everything for themselves. So there was two extremes there. I don't know if you can pick a good side in that. I mean, with that kind of mentality where you don't want to kill their children, and it's like, what? No, I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if that's a really nice thing to do. So by creating Christ as a pro-Roman, this is an absolute truth. Just read the book. He's pro-Roman. He's a Jew. If they were expecting a Messiah, they would have never have picked this guy out of a crowd to be the Messiah. If they were, Jew to Jew, they would never have done so. They would have completely not ever accepted it. They grafted. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of symbology about grafting the olive branch and the olive lending. It's in the wording. It's like code. But the way they made him pro-Roman. Render Caesar what is Caesar's. Pay your taxes. Wow, this sounds like Walt Disney propaganda to me. Like Josephus was the first Walt Disney when it came to military-industrial complex propaganda. And then also, being that he was sarcastically saying, "Come and we'll be fishers of men," that has a couple of different meanings if you look at the War of the Jews and the War Scrolls. Don't get those two confused. Two different things. What Josephus wrote was the War of the Jews. Was supposed to be the most concise. He was a historian, but during that time, because Rome used to destroy all written everything, his is the only thing that survived from that time that has any kind of historical. Because Rome was huge, so any place that those people were, so were the Romans, and a lot of things got hidden in caves, like you found with the scrolls after the fact. And maybe we'll find more as time goes on if they don't erode away first. But that's why there's one voice for that whole time period, really. And then, a bunch of mediocre stuff that doesn't really tie into it. Just people's basic finances. And you'll get records like that, finding stuff like that, like personal data. But you're not going to find a concise history of where things were and how they got there, unless you're looking at Josephus. So he's like the be all end all. And the only other thing that would be able to match that would be the the New Testament. And when you read them together, there's lots of parallels where one's saying one thing and this other's saying this, and then when you put them together, it's a very dark humor joke that is making fun of the reader who doesn't know better. And it's like an inside joke for the people who actually controlled the religion, which would be the Flavians. What they did was, because they would not bow, you had to have a statue of the Caesar to worship, and any of the other previous Caesars that were deified. And since the Jews wouldn't do that, what they did was they grafted a religion, and they made the conquests of Jesus mirror the conquests of Titus Flavian. So people were being tricked into worshiping Titus without really unknowing that they were, because when they started accepting Christianity, they were really learning about the conquests of Titus, just written in an allegorical way or and that's where David Atwill is coming from with his book Caesar's Messiah. I really recommend reading it. You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree, but you should know that it's out there. That is out there. There's people out there that are presenting this information, and it's always the first Christians and the Flavians. And let's just go. Where's it? So what he's also saying is that because Josephus, the historian, writes in the War of the Jews certain events that will take place, or that had taken place, or whatever. I guess when Jesus apparently is being seen as a prophet, because they did take place, but Jesus and his gospel was supposedly prior to you know, the Josephus' time, so that it appeared that prophecy was occurring. You know that the word prophet just means poet. I mean, it's been mutated, but it means like words to song, basically. And it had nothing to do with knowing anything about the future. That was something that we added to it in the Western world. But it says, if anyone compares the words of our Savior with anyway, with the other accounts of the historian Josephus, the only one available, concerning the whole war, how can one fail to wonder and to admit that the foreknowledge and the prophecy of our Savior were truly divine and marvelously strange? Yes. And then they're saying how people they're not getting it. The fact that is actually, it's more of a proof to the fact that Josephus was the one who penned both, and he just backdated one side of it. I want to try to find you guys something that's okay, so maybe this is kind of a lame one. I want Jews of this era saw a generation as lasting 40 years, so Titus' destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE fit perfectly into the time frame Jesus gave his prophecy. However, while Jesus did accurately predict events from the coming war, there was a flaw in his foreknowledge. That is, that the person whose visitation actually brought about the destruction of Jerusalem was not Jesus, but Titus Flavius. If his prophecy did envision, as Eusebius and other church scholars have maintained, events from the coming war between the Romans and Jews, then the Son of Man Jesus warned of seems to not have been himself, but Titus, a point that I shall return to. So he's just basically making the parallels between Titus and Josephus again. This book is very interesting, and if you are a studier of the Bible, I have a hard time reading all the biblical passages because it just makes me angry. I mean, I really have a serious problem with New and Old Testament because, you know, it's the same reason why I can't sit and listen to commercials or watch CNN, because I hate when I'm being lied to, and I hate when I see manipulation occurring, because to me that's an insult to my intelligence, and it's also a way of sorcery, to where if you sit in it too long, you're gonna end up at least slightly being affected by it, and you will be manipulated in some way, even if it's just because they want you to resist against it. Like, you can, once you have established some sort of reaction, you can steer that reaction. Like, you can say, well, all this stuff is happening. Well, yeah, and what you know, like laws and what's going on in today's society. If you say that, okay, they're doing all this because they want to see our reaction. Well, if you don't react and they still pass all these policies, they still win because you're still under their thumb. So if they want to, say, invoke martial law, but first they want you to revolt, like these types of insults that they do in Congress, where they keep on limiting freedom of speech in the First Amendment, and you can go get a $250,000 fine in New York now if you're a business owner who says the words illegal alien. Like, that's the type of stuff that would make somebody rebel, right? But if you don't rebel and then actually you just passively let it go, then they just eroded society a little bit, so they won either way. Either they were going to get this win or that win. You know what I mean? They set it up so that, you know, 6 in one, half dozen in the other. It's not something that they have. There's no lose path unless you break the cycle, and that's pretty much how they roll. All right, let's do a little bit of this now. I think I have to pull it down first. Hold on. I think I have to X out at this guy. Okay, here we go. So let's have a little look here. Theory of Everything is my YouTube page. I just have 38 subscribers. I've had this open by a different name, Sparky Derba, because I used to be an electrician in the union, both in New York and in San Diego. But I just started posting more videos lately. I don't advertise. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not even I will never try to ask for money for videos. I'm doing this because I have an enjoyment. I enjoy it, and I like to share information. And I just want to encourage people to read and get information for themselves. So that's that one. Theory of Everything, right? Then this one, you saw Josh Hu earlier, went from the search engine. That's Josh Hu Search. This is Josh Hu TV, and this is my other channel. And this is some of the videos I can't post on YouTube because, like, I'll play music that I'm not allowed to play, or something like that. Even if I'm not monetized, which I think is funny. Because if you hear music from something else, some other source, and they're not making money off it, it's like an advertisement to go get that music. It's not. I don't see how that affects people who own the music at all. You know, and I'm not using it to gain. I'm not using it to gain even subscribers. So there's no monetary gain for me having the music in there, and it's not the main focus of it. So under the Fair Use Act, I'm completely 100% justified. But YouTube doesn't follow that. It's very subjective. So theory of everything. I'm at episode 2 right now, and the 16th Amendment fraud. That one was very, very informative, and I found that one extremely interesting. I've already done some information about the church hates you. This is talking about the Jesuits in Rome and how they've never accepted our country. They've never recognized our Constitution, and that's the Pope's doing that. It doesn't matter if it's a black Pope, which is what they call the Jesuits, or a regular Pope. They never have accepted us because they're counter-reformationists and we are the reformationists. Ever since, Martin Luther allegedly tacked that thing on the door in 1517, but you want to know what day it was? It was October 31st. So then they slapped a big pagan holiday on top of it, and forever he was lost to the annals of time. It's a little divisive. Alright, so call to action, my autism in books. This is me talking about some stuff. Abusing the Constitution, MDPV files, if you know what that is, you might want to look at that. Kratom Saves Lives is one of my other videos. It's one of my more popular ones, 33 views. I have 7 subscribers, guys. I just started doing this stuff. My theory of everything, way back, these videos were me at concerts, stuff like that, me rock climbing. And when they, like I said, 6 years ago, that's me when I made a movie in San Diego. This is part of it right there. Dancing on Clouds, that's me rock climbing, rappelling, stuff like that, like outdoorsy stuff, right? Some jokey stuff, some I thought I think I have a sense of humor, so. But then I started getting into these little rants, and then I kind of ramped up to making bigger videos, and then ta-da! I don't get time to do a lot of this stuff because I'm running a business and I have a toddler, so whenever I can fit it in, it's kind of like a fun thing for me to do. And then there's like I said, there's the Josh U equivalent, and there's some of the videos here I edit a little differently because I can do more here, and this is my. I really hope this catches on because Josh is a great guy. His channel. Let's see if I can pop that up. Let's see if I can do that. Let's get me over here too. Let's see. Too many E's. Truth. TRUTH. Yeah, that's him. This is this guy right here. This is my second account. That's why it doesn't say I'm subscribed, but I am now. There you go. But this is Josh's. This is his videos. He does like the live debates and stuff like that too. Like, see, this President Trump is executive order protected, and blah blah blah. Like, this is an hour long. This is 40 minutes. These are other, and this these are all when they do the press conferences and stuff like that. But he also does his own wrap ups, and he does his his take on things. God, she looks hideous. And this guy right here, right, with the stoner eyes, he is the creator of this Josh U TV. I just clicked this so you can see the. It's an alternative to YouTube that doesn't mess with you. You can do what you want here. You should always be respectful, and you don't need to be stealing, intellectual property and stuff like that, because nobody is okay with that. But this is something he created. He created this for people that were getting discouraged because he was getting discouraged. And then, Google can't give you any good results, so he went ahead and he created his own search engine. Josh is a great guy, man. Very cool dude. And then, I don't know if I put buddy list up here, but I will. buddylist.co. Blink. Buddy list. See? This is buddy list. This is my account. And this is... You just go right... Let's see if I can... It's kind of loading right now. I'll scroll down in a second when I'm allowed to. Things run a little bit slower on my end. So is this the last one? Yeah. Yeah, I think I posted that one last. Okay, so good. Yeah, these are the top things, but this is, I mean, it's just like a feed, like if you were, doing Facebook, right? The only difference is you don't have like a page that you have your own stuff on. It's kind of like all nothing. Like you can click on yours and then kind of see all of yours all in one row, but it's not like you have like, you know how like Facebook is more like page oriented, to like this is your page. It's not really set up like that. It's kind of like a Twitter, but also like that, you know, and then you don't need to have a cell phone for it. This is also an app on Androids and I believe also iPhone. Don't eat babies. I just started reading that. Yeah, so this guy's dead. Yeah, the witness that saw the that woman, the woman cop. Let's see if it's not gonna. It's getting slow. Where did I read it all? Oh, I put it underneath. Okay. Fraternal order. This is my take. This is what I said. The fraternal order of police takes a conflicting oath to one another above their oath to serve their residents. From the beginning, this smelled of a deliberate execution to me. I mean, Gutter Geiger. That's what I call it. Gutter Geiger shot that man for reasons, not by accident. And then the guy who saw it happen, right here, is now dead. And this is one of the videos from High Impact Vlogs, who will be on the Quite Frankly show tomorrow, Tuesday from 7 to 9 if you're watching on the East Coast, or subtract 3 hours from that, 4 to 6 if you're watching it anywhere else on the West Coast. So that's just this little short shout out to him because he deserves it. Well, I was looking at Buddy Rich earlier because I don't know, just because I felt like it. And then let me go back to my Kindle here. Okay, what happened? There it goes. And let's see what else I can read. Okay, so going back to where we were talking about the Nephilim and non-player characters, and my idea of like how not every human being that you walk across is real. Some of it's just programming, like the background. You know, that's why it's like they have automatic responses. When you ask them a question, they give you an answer to come something completely different. They're like soundbite machines. I mean, I'm not saying that it's like I absolutely believe in this. I'm just saying it's just a funny way of looking at it, you know, to kind of loosen your mind up to thinking in different ways. Instead of saying, wow, these people are dumb, like, are these even people? You know, how do we know that this is real? Because you pinch and it hurts? I mean, that's not really a way of defining what's real and what's not. Alright, so somebody had brought up something on the Quite Frankly show, and I responded back to it, but I thought what I wrote had some good points to it, so I'm just going to read it right now. So I don't believe that the Lord's Prayer makes archons or bad entities go away, because I have my doubts about where all that biblical stuff originated. But to answer the question, why not blink us out? You know, if they're a superior race of like aliens, why don't they just blink us out if they want us gone? And going back to that thing where if they're not, what I said way earlier in this video, they're not able to occupy like their own bodies or whatever, they have to be transmitted. That's why the portals have to be open, so you get possession or whatever. Or maybe they have to tear open a portal so they can come in. But are they mist? Are they clouds? Are they solid? You know, what are they? Plasma? Are they ectoplasm? I mean, what are they? If they come over here and from a different dimension, like, do we even comprehend what their meaning of life is, like meaning of existence is? Is it completely alien to us? Is AI demons? I mean, what is it? Like, you know, what is that intelligence? Where did it originate from? Algorithms and math, or did it originate from someplace else? So, all this being aside, like, the reason why I think they can't blink us out, because if they are not physical, the hybridization that we're talking about, the transfer of consciousness would be the only way that they could come, you know, manifest in the realm. They may have a more grand plan than us, but I believe we're going to be manipulated once they can utilize our bodies as their vessels. If you know what I'm saying, like, as if they haven't already done that, you know. Have you ever seen the movie Dark City? Oh boy, I'm not a big fan of Hollywood, but that movie, yeah, and I'm certainly not a big fan of the director that murdered freaking what do you call it, Brandon Lee, because he was also the director of The Crow. The same crew did Dark City in 1999, but it's definitely worth a watch. 99 or 96, I can't remember. The whole thing of God, quote unquote, sending down watchers seems awfully physical to me. They just, when you hear these stories in the Old Testament, don't just read them to get to the end of it. And I know it's really hard not to do that because it's fucking whatever, you know. It's poorly translated, horribly translated. Like, you have to look at context, and there's some words that don't translate, and then there's some words that translate into multiple definitions depending on how it's used. And there's so many instances where people have pointed out that their definition of, like heavens means outer space sometimes. It means sky. It doesn't mean heaven. It's like the heavens. It's not like heaven like angels and choirs and, you know, what's that thing? When you pull it like this and it harps. There we go. It's people get an impression in their head because they're taught that at a young age. So then they hear a word and it triggers just that one type of comprehension of it, and that's what keeps people from really seeing what they're reading, and it hurts them in their way of being able to scrutinize what they're reading too, because it's almost like personal to them if you challenge it now, because their parents, their grandparents, everybody they loved, everybody that they ever met, everybody in their family, you know, all throughout school, and everything was taught that way. So to go against that is like having to, it's like harder than trying to pull out their spine and tell them to walk. You know, they can't do it, or they won't. I mean, I seem to be pretty malleable. I'm pretty objective. I allow things to pass through me, even if I don't agree with them 100%. I'll consider them, and I don't think a lot of people have that in them, to just consider something different. You know, I mean, just play it out to the end to see if you know. That's what Plato used to say. Okay, you know, take the information, walk it out to the end, and if it makes sense, then you might have to, you know, start considering it more. If it defeats itself in the process of you know, well, let's take that to the very end of what, you know, I mean, and then if it doesn't work out, then you're like, okay, well, obviously it's defeated on logic alone, that it couldn't possibly be what it is, you know. But nobody does that. They don't do that kind of discernment, and they don't do that kind of scrutinizing. They're told that there's a bunny that hides eggs from them, and you know, and they tell the story about Jesus, and they think there's a big difference between which one's valid and what's not. And I have a hard time believing that there's a whole lot of difference when it comes to what's real about that. I think more or less it's a allegorical tale, like the Jesus' death and resurrection, and Horus and all this other stuff. Horus, a whole different story. I want to talk about some other time. But if you and I'm not the last. Too many people have already talked about this, so it's kind of boring. But the procession of the equinox and the way it could be overlapped over Jesus's, you know, his actions in life and his death and resurrection, and how the sun passes through thing, looks like it's gone and then appears again 3 days later. All this stuff. It's like the procession of the equinox, and I'm not the one person who said that. But it doesn't mean that it couldn't be that they incorporated that story into a real person because they were giving them the traits that they know others would latch onto, and it would give them credence and followers because of that one common story that everybody knew. I mean, I'm not, so that doesn't, that just because it does line up doesn't mean that isn't cancels out the possibility of Jesus. I'll say that. So let's see, the whole thing, God quote unquote sending down watchers, seems awfully physical to me. The whole Yahweh thing, the insecure demiurge who likes to destroy the planet on occasion when he gets miffed, doesn't seem like a benevolent creator to me, and that's why I reject the Old Testament, because there's too many instances where God's telling people to do horrible stuff or doing it himself. And why does he need to do that? The answer, in my opinion, is that the Hebrew Jew God was not the creator. He was an imposter, and he's hijacked our minds in the biggest mind control fuck of our existence. I honestly believe that the meaning of life is that we are representatives of the true creator. What is life, and why are we here? And we keep on waiting for somebody else. Every time we do that, the people that the Creator is sending to do the work got their hands behind their back. They're sitting on their hands, right? They're sitting like this. This is us. This is the society right now. We hate everything that's going on in politics. We hate what they're doing to the president, most of us who have thinking minds. We definitely hate what they're doing to our rights. We definitely hate what they're doing with our taxes. We hate what they're doing with all kinds of different legislature to try to, you know, bring basically depravity into schools and teach children about sex at the earliest age possible, which, by the way, is also another it's another Aleister Crowley initiative, because Aleister Crowley has stated that he believed that all children before they hit puberty should be witness to every type of sex act that there is, and that's including bestiality and sex with relatives and things like that, and that they should also have to partake in it. That's like, you're talking like 3 and 4-year-olds and stuff like that. This is Aleister Crowley. This is everybody. You know, his books, and Albert Pike's, who was a disgusting Luciferian, they are at the lodges of every Freemasonic, you know, major lodge across the country. They keep Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma and the Book of the Law and all the other books that Aleister Crowley wrote. And Aleister Crowley was a 33 degree Mason, so was Pike. These guys are still being glorified and praised. You know, when somebody is known to have been a child murderer, and he also was known to be MI5, I'm talking about Aleister Crowley now. He was known to have influenced Winston Churchill in 1911 when he was the admiral of the sea or whatever, and the Lusitania was sunk, and that was one of Crowley's workings too. When this thing and stuff like that was a symbol for Typhon, which is a god of the sea that's evil. You know, that's where you get the word typhoon from, and it's pretty disgusting. But so why would you have the books, even if you thought the information that he wrote in there was of value? The fact that it's coming from a murderer, you know, do you want your kid to read the Jeffrey Dahmer book? And you want your there's more to that story too, by the way. He was killed in prison because he had some secrets. He was I think he was maybe supplying for some elites, but it's neither here nor there. He didn't get caught for a long time, and a lot of people were eaten in the process. Alright, so where was I going with that Aleister Crowley thing? I'll have to do a playback to figure out what the fuck I was talking about. Alright, so what I said, I honestly believe that the meaning of life is that we are the representatives of the true Creator. We are the manifest. That's why we have a divine spark. That's why we have a higher self. That's why when we think, and we can have like a conversation kind of like with ourselves, it's not just us talking to ourselves, it's us being inspired, you know? It's like, you get an idea, you don't know where it came from. You're either dialed into the ether, you know, your frequency is matching, you're getting that radio station that's giving you this idea, you're tuned into that station, and if you're, you know, able to tune into more stations, you get more information. But yeah, the ethereal energy, the ether, could possibly be the Creator. It could be all around us, and that's why, you know, instantaneous action at a distance occurs, because they say, how does that work? They call it spooky action at a distance, because if the sun blinked out instantaneously, so it, you know, things happen here, it wouldn't take the time it takes for light to reach us for that to happen. It would be instant. So why does that happen? Well, maybe because there's this other thing that is going like this, like a wave that's got everything on it, or a blanket that's being rolled with a bunch of models on top of it, and this is the ether. It consumes all. It's like, you know, everything is. It's like if you had like a putty, like a slime, and you put some, you know, bubbles in it and some, you know, some toys or whatever. It's all in the slime. So if you wiggle here, it vibrates over here. It's instantaneous because it's going down. You know what I mean? So that's how instantaneous action at a distance is basically explained. Not by mainstream, because they don't believe in that, but whatever. So we are agents, but we forget that, because from the moment we get here, we are taught to deny. Oh yeah. Sorry. We are agents, but we forget that, because from the moment that we We are agents, but we forget that, because from the moment we get here, we are taught to deny nature and consider that whole concept of being godlike blasphemous. Why doesn't God come down and save us, people ask. Because he's sending us to do that, but we keep fucking it up by waiting for him, or a savior. We are the answer, but we are told to wait for somebody else. That's a pretty clever way to dismiss, disarm, and disable the only opposition to this other entity, which I'm talking about evil. All these theories that tie in stories of the Bible, like Cain, that's the feedback loop. That Bible puts us on. That's the feedback loop that the Bible puts us on, so we never get anywhere, running in circles. And then, I'm not talking about a hamster wheel. I'm talking like you run, you come all the way up, and then you're back around to where you started, and like this, you know. Not where you're going like this and everything is moving. No, you're actually looking like you're making progress until you realize where you end up again, and then you just. And that's how brains work. They get cyclical. Why do you think this might be the symbol for like portals and for pedophilia and stuff like that? You know, maybe there's a connection there. Our cyclical thought is our prison, because we've been kind of like conditioned to think in circles, so that even when we get to the epitome of something, the next step is knowing less than we knew the step before that, and then we start coming back around the other side. It's just a thought, and that would entrap us, right? And if the more things that you make in the world, like a ball, BAAL or BALL, like talking about the sphere model and stuff like that, like anything that entraps your mind, like if everything was an infinite plane, that is less chaotic than being someplace where you can't get off of, because a ball is infinite, right? You're stuck. You can't go anywhere but around the ball. But an infinite plane, that type of existence, like a matrix platform, like you know, then that gives you some hope, because it means that someplace you might be better off than the other, rather than being stuck in cycle of thought. And that mindset of cycle of thought is how authority gets you to submit to their control. So I said, because he's sending us to do it, but we keep fucking up and wait for him. We are the answer, but we are told to wait for somebody else. That's a pretty clever way. Okay, I'm sorry. All these theories that tie in stories of the Bible, like, hey, that's a feedback. Okay, so where am I? Oh, we keep basing our references on a book that was given to us to control our minds cyclically, and stories that were told to us to confuse the truth. The Bible is a hamster wheel. See, I just said it's not a hamster wheel, and everybody is on it. And around we go. It has us thinking in circles, repeating patterns, etc. And then I said, there's your ball. There's your globe model. You can't run to the end of a ball. You only come up around to where you started from, like I just said, explained. Don't you see how the globe model is designed to reinforce your mind to thinking that way too? I think I said all that alright. Alright. We're stuck on something you can't get off, and there's no way of escaping. That's why those practicing Kabbalah and worshipping Baal, just listen phonetically, want you to perceive reality in just this way. If you are convinced something is so, it doesn't matter what the truth is, because all it takes for your behavior, philosophy, hope, and goals, aspirations, sense of self, etc. to be manipulated is for you to believe it to be so, because then you'll start acting accordingly. You will instinctively tailor all of your actions and behaviors and belief structure around what you think your foundation truths are. So that's why everything's a lie, because they're manipulating us. Because if we don't believe in it, then we usually tend to go to the other end of the spectrum, and in which case they have something waiting for us there to manipulate our minds anyway. It's got to be like in the very beginning of retraining your brain. You got to reject everything and just take one thing at a time and examine it and analyze it and say, does this still have the same meaning to me as it did before? And then you go on to the next one. Does this still have the same meaning to me as it did before? And you make your piles. And it's the only way to really start to get out of that training, that conditioning. Yeah, that's the reason why it's so hard for people to see certain things that are staring them right in the face, because it requires a whole upturn of everything that they've held true and sacred. You remove certain givens, and the Jenga tower crumbles. I honestly believe that my analogy right there is what we're supposed to take from the story of Nimrod in Babylon and the tower. And going a bit further with the why, we can and do manifest reality based on our convictions, and that makes us a very powerful tool to take control over. Think about it. Yes, we do manifest with our thoughts, and we are told to not believe in magic, but we are what's really the magic in this world. That's why they need us, and that's another reason why they're not blinking us out. They know that our power to think, act, and create is the gift of the creator. Maybe it's not as dramatic and quick and bells and whistles and fireworks as maybe an actual ethereal creator could be. It's scaled down so that whatever reason, and it has to usually sometimes be a more of a group effort at times, but we also bring things, like we attract things into our world when we're thinking and concentrating on it. And that's a form of magic right there. That's a form of magic. And it's not dark, it's not light, that's just the nature of humans. And that's a really powerful, very wonderful thing to try to cultivate, not reject. Because we're taught to reject. And we're taught to be downtrodden. And then you add your job and how you're treated like shit, and you feel like you're still in high school. And then, I dealt with this. I'm not dealing with it now, but I'm just saying everybody pretty much is dealing with it who doesn't own their own business. And then if you do own a business, then you're fearful that the next legislation is going to put you under, or the next tax, and all your hard work, or there's going to be a new penalty, a new fee, or a new permit, and things like that. You never know what they're going to throw at you. They are after the middle class, and they hate small business. They don't want anybody rising above where they want to keep us to. So the middle class, the people that have initiative, determination, self-motivation, drive, whatever you want to call it, those are the targets. That is who the Counter-Reformationist Jesuits want to murder. And the best way to do that is through communism, and you can label it socialism if you want, but communism was created by Jesuits. Karl Marx was Jesuit trained. He was given a book to write. It wasn't even his thoughts. He may have added some things to it if they liked him enough to do so, but he was, I think Weishaupt even was one of the people that influenced him. He was controlled. He was very, very, he was doing things to satisfy, and of course we'll never know that, but those ideas from Marx, I believe, were already in place and in play during the Jacobin Reds of the French Revolution. Robespierre, that was communism, same damn thing. I mean, that concept of destroying nations was happening by way of Rome, and then the Inquisitions. The Inquisitions, getting back to whether or not Rome is the Roman Empire or not. The Inquisitions, to me, seem like an act of a totalitarian dictatorship, more so than it reminds me of a church that is, turned the other cheek, forgiving. They were just going around there, and they were using Inquisition as a land grabbing tactic to expand their influence. And they wanted to get the Muslims, they wanted to get those damn Cathars. They can't stand to think that there's possibility of anyone else having different ideas, because then they influence others. And the Gnostics wanted to get away from the corruption back then, so they did. They lived a peaceful life until they all got burned at the stake and murdered and hunted down by the very first crusade. Yeah. It's pretty sick shit. Crusades and Inquisitions are a dead giveaway to the fact that the Roman Empire, Holy Roman Empire, is still the same thing as it was before. It's just now they have their property managers up front, and then they take a back seat, and they have been since the monarchies. But even more so now, you have your Rothschilds, your Kuhn and Loebs, your Warburgs and stuff like that. But you don't have the Pope is actually getting more and more blatant and abrasive about it. They're ramping up because they've gone a long time without having to actually have a real opponent. They have been working both sides of the political spectrum here forever. So this is why they just simply can't tolerate, and that's why they seem like bad actors now, because they've never had any practice with a real adversary. Their adversary being, of course, somebody who's good to the people. But that's why this seems like so chaotic right now. They're just losing their shit. they control everything, so they can throw as much garbage as they want on the media and try to influence us to hate a guy who's doing a good job for us. And I don't know if he's gonna be a dick in a different way or not, but I know that if he's standing between us and complete and total revenge, I guess you could say, by the Romans for us even having this brief period of time where they weren't able to continue on their plan, there's going to be some heads rolling, like maybe possibly literally, if this guy doesn't get reelected. We need to keep the evil to kind of at bay for a little while and try to restructure our way of thought and, you know, maybe win back some rights. And if they don't give them to us, we should just take them anyway, especially when it comes to guns. A polite society is a well-armed society. All the bitching that you see, all the snotty whining and bitching and moaning and it would stop. I'm not saying people should shoot each other for arguments. I'm just saying that you shut your fucking mouth when you know that there's an alpha. And I'm not saying that guns are even required for that, but being too afraid to confront somebody because you're gonna get a fine, somebody for having an opinion that doesn't please them. So who gets to decide who gets to get pleased? Who gets to decide which one of you are worth having that opinion? Is it the person who just mutated their genitals and folded them inside out to make a pussy? Or is it you, who just wants to run their business however way they want to? It doesn't want to be yelled at by a fucking freak with no dick. I'm just curious. Yeah, let's see. Manifest human. Oh yeah. So I was talking about us being able to manifest, and just because it comes slower, or if it doesn't come, you know, with fireworks, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And so they can't just kill us because we have the gift of the Creator, the ability to create. They can't make manifest anything. They can't make manifest anything without the human being as the medium. So our unnamed true Creator God, being simply that of the ethereal consciousness, out from which we are all given our own lives, are the infinite expressions of our God at play. Make no mistake, we are not as far removed from the Creator Source as they tirelessly try to convince us. We just need to remember who we are, what we are, and that we have the responsibility to be the stewards of this existence. We are its guardians and its protector. When we stop absolving our own power as we bend knee and wait for the Savior and realize that He, she is us, then we'll have no choice but to take action to correct this path gone astray. That's something I wrote. You don't have to agree with it, but it's sometimes just refreshing to hear something that's different. Too much of the same thing is called hypnosis. When you hear the same thing being repeated like the media does, and you hear it not just repeated on different channels, but repeated, you know, ad nauseum, you know, over and over again, then that is a form of hypnotism. Because after a while, your brain starts absorbing it as being fact, and it's a sick way to do things, but they do it. I have nothing right now. I don't want to read anymore. I have to plan my next one a little bit better. This was a long, basically just rant. Not really rant because I wasn't yelling, but blah blah blahing, I guess. There's some good information in here. Maybe I'll even save some of it and make a video or two, because it seems like it's probably going to be pretty long when I hit stop. Alright guys. Until then, be awesome! Alright, bye bye.